Okay, good to see you again. Peace, everybody. World Media Collision Jazz Lovers Television another Thursday, and we have in room all our family. Not all, but I see people just came, and it's good. Peace to Sid, Makako, Vanessa, and Kek, who joined just now. So let's start.
It's Makakuvu Abiyo Bay. Welcome to the World Media Collision Jazz Lovers Television Network. Thursday, August 18th production of I Found My Voice with the illustrious Van Miller and I don't want to say the Wanderer, but I know you move around a lot, Sid. Where are you today, Sid?
Today I am back in Nufa City.
Right on. Mm-hmm. Jack, how you doing? Udamaki, you line of the new dawn. How you feeling?
I'm doing great. Just trying to regroup from a busy 2 weeks. Then I traveled right after that. So just getting myself back together and, excited about everything that is going on. Not only in my life, but in the lives of other people as well. So we're excited. We're excited about the show today, and just looking forward to a good production.
Excellent. So, Kek, can you hear us?
Udamaki, or peace, and power, blessings, wisdom to everybody. I just really empowered, humble, grateful, honored to be here as always. And so, just here to, expand myself and expand the conversation when it's appropriate, and just happy to be a part of it. So, thank you.
Excellent. Doing the chair, Udamaki. Well, the guest today, Keenan McKaylee, he contacted me and he said he won't be available, which is fine. So what I want to do is share with everyone how I met Keenan through his father. His father was a individual named Ernest McCaleb, and he was from somewhere in the South. Keenan will give the details on where his father originally came from, but his father was a world traveler. And I met his father, Ernest McCaleb, at the National Black Theater in Harlem at an event at a fragrance boutique, which was on the first floor of Fifth Avenue and 125th Street in Harlem, New York. And his father was at this fragrance boutique where they sold soap and other stuff, cultural items, because it was a Moorish-owned business. National Black Theater also was started by a woman. Can't think of her name right now. It didn't come to me. But so he was there, and he was doing a wine tasting. So Ernest's dad was doing a wine tasting at this event, at this business, and the wine was the Sheba Tej wine, Sheba, Sheba Tej, Tej, and it's a honey wine. And the recipe originated in Ethiopia. And the recipe goes all the way back to the time of Solomon and before. Because the recipe, the wine itself, was taken by Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, when she visited King Solomon. So that is part of the root story of the wine itself, the honey wine, the Sheba Tej. And as a result of meeting his father at that event, he and I crafted a relationship for about 2 years up until the time he passed away.
Mm.
The Shibatej wine is a honey wine and is bottled here in the United States at the Brotherhood Winery in Washingtonville, New York.
Mm.
And the winery and Ernest McCaleb had crafted a business relationship where they would not only make the wine and bottle it and sell it. So my relationship with Keenan's father, Ernest McCaleb, graduated into being part of the people that were beginning to promote the wine and market the wine. So what I want to do, if I can find it, I should be able to find it. I want to share a picture. There is a world-renowned Ethiopian chef. His name is Marcus Samuelson. And he owns a restaurant in New York. I think it's the Queen of Sheba, I'm not sure. But in any event, I'm looking for the picture of me and Marcus Samuelson holding the wine. And I was presenting the wine to him at a wine tasting event in New York, in Queens, at the Astoria Manor on Astoria Boulevard. And I also presented to him an Ethiopian card, friendship card. So up until his father passed away, he and I had that type of relationship. I would do various wine tasting events because I would carry the wine with me. And then I would also, at some of the events, play my drum as part of the cultural expression of tasting the wine as well. And Keenan and I met, I'm not sure if I believe it was before the memorial service, I'm not sure. But since then, we have crafted a very strong relationship. So I'm going to leave it there for now, but I want to talk about the title of the program is The Fallacy of Leadership, Part 2. And before I go into that, I'd like to get some comments on what people perceive as leadership. And I'm going to yield it to Van for a moment while you guys discuss.
Well, I know that I am a leader, and I know that a lot of responsibility comes into play when you've placed yourself in that space. I have 34 years of retail management, so and most of the places that I've worked in, I've always met what was expected of me, and a lot of times with above that. A leader is a person that no matter what they're going through in their daily lives, and when they leave home, they leave their lives at home, and then they come into that space of being a leader. I've been in a leadership space during the loss of family members and those types of things, but we cannot allow, as leaders, we cannot allow all of the things that come at us daily to sway what our ultimate goal is in being a leader. So I always say that I know how to push people. I know how to get people to see what the ultimate goal is in being in a leadership space. I think that for the most part, that is why I have a lot of people around me, is because no matter what I'm going through, I am able to persevere and to accomplish what the ultimate goal is. So I think that one of the downsides or downfalls of being a leader would be always carrying your personal things that are going on with you into that space. And I always, when I was in a hiring space, I would always tell them I only hire leaders and managers. And if you didn't come into this space to be that, then this is not the place for you, because we're all here. We're all going to work. We're all expected to do the same job, even though I was the manager. And so even today, I can go around the city in some of these retail establishments, and I see people that have worked for me, and they're all in leadership roles. So I say that leadership is something that it's something that you have to know. It's something that you have to express, and your expectations of the people around you are always going to be, I am a leader and in a leadership space. So that would be what I would say about that, Malkugu.
Kek, Sid, or Frickson, you want to add to that?
Van summarized it very well. Yeah, I don't have much experience, but for me, leadership is like this quality when just like a leader, when by mere his presence, he affects other people and makes them do something good just by being there in their lives. So yeah, it can be in a more structured way, like in businesses and corporations, organizations, and it can be simply in life, like in friendships and like in our student environment. Like we are all students, we are all equal to each other, but just for example, me or some other people, just by being there, just by doing the thing that they are doing, like they inspire us or make other people also move, also try something out. And it's not like they tell you to do this, do that. No, it's like this is just presence that affects you in a positive way.
Kek or Frickson?
Well, the only thing that I would have to add is, you learn how to be a teacher by learning how to be a student. You learn how to live by learning how to die. And so you learn how to lead by learning how to serve. And it seems to me that the best leaders are those that are the reluctant leaders. They're placed in that position merely because of who, who their being exudes there, just as Sid was saying, just on a daily basis, their energy is just as such that they naturally fall into that, whether they desire to be in that position or not. So I think, those of us that are put into that position reluctantly need to be willing to step into those shoes, especially at this time of our human becoming, and really be that example for other people and step up our own game, and so that's what I have to say.
Frickson, you want to jump in for a moment,
I hear you and trying to pay attention, because now it's start the hot gunnery. I hear under my window some blowing up some and I just have text messages from friends from cities near with me. So it's attack of Ukrainian army now, and it is we must now pay attention because it's rockets flying on our territory.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to pause this production for now so you can focus on that?
No, I will be with you. Just will be listening and we'll have pay attention what's going on around.
Okay. Well, if you got to
And
give
so,
us,
so when Frickson says that, when Frickson says what he says, that to me is another form of leadership, because he is in a place that is under fire, but as a leader, because he's basically our leader for this production that we're doing today. So he's saying, I have to pay attention to what is going on. You all can carry on with the production. And so that is another piece of what a leader would do. We're still going to do the show, but I have to pay attention. And you all have to continue to watch what is going on. So that to me would be another form of leadership as well.
excellent.
Thank
Sid,
you. Thanks for support.
Yes.
Sid, you want to comment on what Van just said?
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing.
Yeah. Right on.
No, it takes a team effort. You know, like even being this show, and I know that even when I'm away, I know that the show is okay. So that says that we're all leaders in our own way, and we lead to the best of our abilities to do what it is that we do. It also allows us a space to impart to other people. Yes, things are going on. Yes, life is going on. But guess what? We still are doing what it is that we do. Every Thursday at 12 noon.
Just wanna show you quick the school. It was in this weekend. We was very hot morning. It is was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, where it is the city village, little village that's called Червоногвардейска, near Wisma town. So it was under hot gunnery. You know, this is what is happened with the school. At the 1st of September, the kids must be going in this school, but now they have no school. The school was destroyed by the rockets of HIMARS from Ukrainian army. And now these kids will be going on 1st of September in the schools in different town in Lugansk People's Republic, mostly in my town, Zakirovsk. So the fire was big, and you see this video I made when I was on this territory, and now we'll try show you some parts of the rockets. This is the metal parts of the rockets, big. It is just the part. So now we hear in the sky seems rockets flying, and the struggle continues.
Wow.
Yes. Ramatep, how you doing?
On top of my Uncle Jed, Uncle Josh, Neb, Uga Nefike, Panabu, Haru, Ma'ati, to everyone. I'm doing well. I'm just jumping in. I'm listening and definitely fixing, man.
So, Mama Kumu, you have to ask him Ramatap the question as well, so we can hear what his take on it is.
Yes. In terms of leadership, what are your thoughts on leadership and what it is or what a leader is?
For me, it's basically a person who serves alongside of everyone else. Everyone has their own rights or their own passage when it comes to the word leadership. When it comes to those qualities, everyone has a big piece of the puzzle, just like in the sense of, unifying minds and unification. Everyone knows their role and what they're best at. And when it comes to leadership, when you serve, you understand who is great and who is weak in certain areas. So training each other in those certain areas to be perfected in a sense, but not too well in perfection, wanting to grow more than anything, staying aligned with your particular structure that you have given yourself, or even learn from others. Those things will start to show within the other people that, yeah, I've learned this too. And then it's just like, all right, this person has way more critical skills when it comes to analyzing certain positions. When, like, for instance, building, for example, building a house. You understand, like, certain people are used for the foundation, certain people are used for the window frame, some are used for the roofing. At times, when someone is looking towards another, their experience with them helps them become better in that area. So it's like, for example, a person who is the person who installs windows. You're seeing all these roofers doing what they're doing. They seem like the roofers are like kind of exhausting themselves. And then this individual is like, you know what? I think I could do this too. That is like basically being a call to leadership, because it's like not saying that I want to be um in what's that word? Not saying that I want to control certain things. It's just more so I want to experience things that others are experiencing, so the job or the mission can be done a lot sooner than what it was.
Excellent. So, in the context of leadership, and we're looking at the 7 levels of leadership, the first level is leadership itself. And there was a term that Ramutef just used in terms of quality. And in his explanation, he spoke about cooperation, and he didn't necessarily say it, but he also spoke about leadership by example. And in cooperation, he delineated various thoughts in reference to what other people bring to the table, and sharing of information so that it expands one's individual capability as well. So in the characteristics of leadership of yourself, what are some characteristics do you think a person that leads themselves and achieving their plan, implementing a plan, and moving forward? What do you think some of the characteristics of that individual should be?
I think accountability. I don't want to fail others, so I definitely hold myself accountable so that I won't fail myself as well. Because we are truly living in a time where there are some people that don't even know that they're in danger. So it takes somebody that has accountability and can see ahead when those people are not thinking. So accountability is a big piece of that for me. I am accountable not only for me, but for the people that are around me. So I would say accountability. And in training and when I was in a manager space, some areas are gray. I can remember my district manager. I knew that I was right with a customer, and the customer went to corporate. I was the person that paid the price for that, even though I knew I was right. And when I went back and I asked them, about the situation, they said it's a gray area. So I took that and I used that word in my life. There are gray areas where I'm neither wrong or I'm not neither right. So it's a gray area for me. And so I've learned to use that, because I don't know what any of you were doing this morning and what was going on in your life when you got up that would cause you to feel one way or the other. So I can't hold you accountable for that. And so, yeah, accountability.
Sid, Keck, or Ramatef wanna share right quick?
Well, I would say like that one of the most important things is decision making and understanding, because leaders, like leader, should be aware the most of his role in the team. Like for example, in basketball, yeah, you have like three types of leaders there. You have team captain, who has the accountability thing. Like you blame the captain when the team loses. Yeah, yeah. Then you have your ace, who scores and who leads the team emotionally. Yeah. And then, like on the field, you have your point guard, who is like doing all sorts of things. And like all three are like in certain leadership position, and they must understand what their role is. Like for example, same person can be in any of the three roles I just said, and like he must be aware what he should do while being in that leadership role, and that um, that understanding makes him like makes his decision making more profound, yeah, and makes other team members like be more like it will be more safer in their mind. They can rely on that person, and basically that reliability is like the the most important thing in a leadership position in a team. So yeah, decision making and understanding of your role.
So relative to one's decision making for their plan, see, there's people say you gotta. What is your plan? So you got to have a plan to follow. So there is the planning process, and then there's the implementation process. And then people talk about the success plan. Success planning and implementation of that plan are two different elements of leadership itself.
That's true.
And then when you talk about success planning, there's very little conversation of or on the subject of success patterning. A success plan is one thing, or a plan for success, because a success plan can only be successful if the goal is reached. If it's not reached, you got to analyze what didn't work, replace it with some structure that will allow it to work to reach your goal. So that's different than a success pattern. A success plan allows you to work towards something, but the goal tells you whether or not the plan works to succeed. And when the plan succeeds, can that plan be replicated in a pattern that can be implemented across the board? Across the board, meaning, let's take Van, for example. She's a seamstress. And she allows her ideas to unfold in the pattern of those things that she makes, but she follows a pattern. The plan the plan is to make a garment.
Mm-hmm.
That's the plan. The pattern is allowed to guide her along the steps to making that garment.
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't come out right, the plan didn't work right.
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay.
And then go to the drawing board.
Exactly. So what that means, now you're at a point of evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
You're back to the drawing board. Now that is for someone who's leading themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So now the responsibility expands outward. Now we're talking about leadership of self, but the responsibility expands outward to develop different characteristics in addition to those basic characteristics when you talk about leading a group.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about leading a group. Because the dynamic of a group is the fact that everybody brings their own personality and their own ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So now the structure of the plan and the leadership capability becomes different. And the discharge of the implementation becomes different because it has to take into account what Ramatup said about different people's capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to be able to analyze what people bring to the table, but more importantly, after you do the analysis, what is the best thing that they can do based upon what they bring to the table, what their characteristics are. And in all of this, one of the most important elements is a couple of them. The first one is to be able to listen. But listening is just not hearing what the person is saying. Listening, what's more important when you're listening, is not the spoken word, but to hear the unspoken word.
Yeah.
Hearing the unspoken word allows you to be able to do a better analysis of what the capabilities are that a person brings to the table.
They're called warm bodies. That's what I call them. Don't bring warm bodies because you cannot have an expectation of a warm body because they're going to only have the capability of doing what you tell them to do to the best of their ability because that's what they were when you bought them, just a warm body.
And that statement makes it even more important for people to realize the meaning of a leadership of self.
Mm-hmm.
Because a warm body doesn't get very many things accomplished.
Correct. Yeah.
So those people cannot be in a leadership position. However, you do find them occupying leadership spaces. And that space is a leadership mechanism. For example, let's take a look at the last president. I don't even like to call him a president. Okay? What was the position he was in? The leadership mechanism was the presidency of the United States. That's the leadership mechanism. It doesn't make you a leader because you are in that mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a warm body in that mechanism. So you inherited a position that you aren't qualified for. And you take that position as if you are overqualified for that position and nobody else knows anything but you. So now you're on a platform, which is the third level of leadership. And we're talking about leadership of self, leadership of groups. The third level of leadership, which is today's topic, is leadership of the masses. Leadership of the masses. Because when you bring that into perspective, you got to bring in other elements in order to get the masses to move. You got to bring in mindset development. What do I mean by that? What do you think mindset development is? Mindset development is deliberate direction of getting people to think in a certain realm. Mindset development. The second element in leadership of the masses is mind control. Mind control. And when you look at what's happening in Lugansk People's Republic, or the Ukraine, or here in the United States, or anywhere there is people being directed in a manner to challenge other people's right to exist. You have that right here in the United States on a massive scale. And then the third level necessary is the propaganda narrative. So you got mindset development, mind control, and the propaganda narrative. And they support one another. Mind control, the mindset development becomes that pattern of thinking that moves people in the direction you want them to go. The mind control is used to keep them going in that direction. And the propaganda narrative is what makes them believe they're doing the right thing. And that's why you got that school bomb. They was taught to believe that's the right thing to do. Blow up the school so the children can't read or write. And then on the other side of that, you got people that have to defend themselves against that aggression.
Is he okay? Frickson okay?
Yes, I'm just looking for the pen.
Oh, okay.
Those are the elements of leadership of the masses. And I wanna drop on to Ramuchev right now, because the Ma'at Raya is an analytical tool that can make all of those three different levels of leadership more effective and streamline the elements into a success pattern. Ramuchev, I'll yield to you right now.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I'm sitting there thinking about it because when you start talking about the propaganda part, that's the part that had me stuck, because I'm just sitting there like, all right, you got the masses, right? We went from the person, because it goes back to something I learned in the Comedic Wisdom School by Philippe Shop Matthews, and it was on this topic they called axiology, I think it was called. And then the whole step was, the definition, well, not even necessarily definition, but the analyzing of what you would call race, in a sense, by in a sense, skin pigmentation, in a sense. But what's in the whole narrative of it is like dealing with, and in a sense, the indigenous African cultures, in a sense, they were defined as person to person type of mentality. It's just person to person. Like when we operate, it's necessarily person to person. We work close to each other, and that's it. We don't go no further. When it comes to what they would call like the Eurasia and things of that nature, they have that mindset that's dubbed You hear me?
Yeah, we.
Okay. Person to possession. So it's like anything that they see, it's theirs. It's like that territorial mindset. Then you go to what they would call Eastern Asia or just Asian culture in a sense, and they are defined as person to group, where they all work for themselves, but they all bring it to a substantial group. Then you have what they would call the indigenous or Native Americans in a sense, and they have the system of group to person, meaning that everybody works for this one person. When it comes to all of our cultures, in a sense, and not even necessarily cultures, but when it comes to that lane of how they identify each and every one of us, that's the mentality that they keep us in, or the propaganda, as you were saying, because we all have that same bring up when it comes to this, that, and the third. But the propaganda was the word race. That was the propaganda. Not humans, not extraterrestrial beings, nothing else. It's just straight race. What is race? For me, when I see the word race, it's like the definition in a sports term, you're trying to, it's a competition. So when it comes to dealing with, in the field that I'm in, when it comes to astrology, is breaking down those sectors that we are all first given the propaganda of just 12. And then that's what they sold us. They sold everybody on 12, not knowing that there's way more than that. There's way more to the cosmos than we even can even imagine. When you put certain things in structure, like in the role of leadership, right? They pick three signs, mainly three signs under their propaganda, and it's all what they will call fire signs, either a Leo, Sagittarius, or an Aries. But they're all defined in three different areas. At Aries, they'll define an Aries as a person who is the perfect boss, just the boss. That's it. Meaning that if you put them in a company, they're the best leaders in your company. When it comes to a Sagittarian, they're your best spiritual leaders because they're on a whole different mind frame. And then let me go back. Each and every one of those three have what is called a God complex. I'll just say that. Every one of those three have a God complex. If everybody can say different, go right ahead. But at the same time, these three have a God complex. It's amazing though. But they're in their different fields. And then you got lastly with the Leos. Leos is more so the ones who are the one that people look up to, but they have this dictatorship. And then, but at the same time, like they're the ones who are what you would call the roles that need to be filled when it comes to ruling uh, um, a country. They have the power to rule the country because in their mindset, they know how to just fix everybody else's problem, but nobody can fix their own. And this is how they are. And then when it comes to all the other ones, mind you, there's in this narrative, there's 12. So 3 out of the 12 are only those who are leaders. Everyone else are something else, or in a sense, they're gatherers, hunters, gatherers, and what's the other one? Hunters, gatherers, and protectors. That's all their role is. So when dealing with Ma'at Raya, it's basically like the more that I'm looking into it, and the way that my mindset is, it's like playing chess, not only with yourself, but what's already been written.
It's a game. It's a game.
Yeah, it becomes a huge game. And it's like some people feel like there's no way to change their outcome in certain areas. There's a lot of things that you can change, but it all starts with the beginning of the leadership role, and that's dealing with self.
Right.
Then as you move and progress, then you start to gather with others who are not even necessarily on the same wavelength, but more so in the sense of we know our roles. So now we have that whole community. From that community, it's getting with the masses, because a lot of the masses, in my definition, I just say they took the blue pill and they're fine with the blue pill. So they know their particular role within. They know their particular role when it comes to dealing in the part of the masses, or what I would dub in a video game term, NPC, which is non-playable character. You have all these players that's here, but you have a lot of non-playable characters in this world because they are, how you say, not necessarily sleep. Most of them would love to stay asleep because they don't want to deal with reality, or in a sense, the times to deal with the word truth. And then stunning under that word truth, I wrote it down. What I say? I said, time to be true to yourself and the theme of truth and transformation. That's what I got from dealing with the energies that we're dealing with today. But it's more so conserving that energy. This is a great time for us to conserve it. It's more so analyzing everything that's going on in these next few days. Not making no major purchases, not making no major moves. It's just more so what we have right now, and from everything behind us and before us. And I'm gonna take this word from this lady that who helped me make the calendar. Her name is Melence, and she did a live a couple of days ago. Was talking about moving from manifesting into becoming. Because we have manifest a lot of things thus far, but all the things that we have manifest, have we become that? Have we actually become what we manifest? All we do is continue to manifest, and at no time have we become anything that we have manifested. We may think we have, but at the same time, we have not. We really haven't, because we have all these major projects going on, but at any given time, have you become anything in those projects? Or it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, and that's just the theme for the next couple of years, is only deal with the things that you have 100% control over. If you don't have 100% control, do not deal with it. Just hands down, you can't deal with it. Why? Because you have all these things that you already have in the background and in front of you. But at any given time, have you looked around and say, I have yet to organize any of this stuff? I may feel like I'm organized, but I have not organized anything. So during this time period, it's basically leading up to that. And then the even greater part, when dealing with just the astrology aspects of it, we're coming into what they will call the Mercury retrograde. And I'm not sure if everybody knows what that is, but I just tell people it's not a bad thing. It's not so much of a good thing. It's just more so, this is a period where, in a sense of finances and mental space, this is a time period where you basically collect your resources and don't spend it for a good 4 weeks, but 2 weeks in total. But in the midst of 6 weeks, in a sense, you have your post shadow, which is basically the shadow period when Mercury retrograde starts. Then you have Mercury retrograde. Then you have the shadow period, or the actual shadow period. In those periods, this is more so on the lines of certain things are going to start that I recognize as a cycle is starting to come my way when it's dealing with either with family, friends, or a certain type of business. If you didn't catch on to it within that week of the retrograde, your mind's going to be so focused on that you're going to allow a lot of the chaos that came in from the Lion's Gate. You're going to allow that to basically consume everything about your being. And then when that shadow period begins, then it's just like, what did I do? Because now I had all this in my bank account. I had all these writings. I had all these things straight, structured wise, but all of it fell through. Why? Because I didn't pay attention to my inner being or listen to that inner voice. So there's a lot, but it's like there's so many different ways to go about with how you view your structure. It's just knowing that in people who are dealing with, in a sense of energy, or know how to feel others' energy, there's other players that are here to basically help you learn. And it's not sense of just planets. We're talking about your ancestors. We're talking about just family members. Those family members you probably don't even realize are angels. Some of them can be demons at times, but You don't even know that these individuals are here to put in your role as the player who's here to learn the skill called leadership. And I was trying to use game terms, but I kind of failed at that. But that's what we're doing. We're trying to get that experience points of leadership so we can get to those, those three main ones. You have your novice, your journeyman, and your masters. We're all, in a sense, are trying to reach that level of masters. We may be a master in our own trade, but as a group, we're still a novice with each other. And I'll end on that.
Wow. And you know what, that one of the things that you said, with your family members, for me, in the last couple of weeks, I realized that I will never be able to change how my family feels, and that I have been living a life in a cocoon and thinking that it would change. And so I realized that, Vanessa, you have got to come out of that cocoon, grow your wings out, and fly to ultimately be who it is that you're going to be, because they're never going to be okay with you. They're never going to understand who you are, because you were actually born different, and you realize that you were born different, but you keep going back trying to bring people along with you, and you're not meant to bring people with you on the journey and the place that you're going. Those people have to know that they are meant to be in that space and come along with you. And if not, then you have to be a leader enough to move forward and go and do what it is that you are destined to do. Because yes, you can stay in a manifestation space and nothing ever comes of what you're wanting to do. But you got to really learn who you are, what you are, where you're going, and what your worth is. And so those are a few things that I've really realized about myself since you gave us our natal chart. I'm a family-oriented person, and I want everybody to win. But at the same time, I have to know everybody's not going to win. Everybody's not going to go. We want them to go, and we want them to be there. We want them to celebrate with us, but they're not going to be there. And when you can get that, then you can move forward.
I agree.
If do I have an opportunity to share? I kind of been holding something under my hat for a minute.
You know you do.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Go ahead, bro.
I to me, just want to really bring it back to that leadership itself, and that the ultimate importance of morality, that is the key piece that we're missing these days as far as our present touted leaders. You see back in, because this whole idea of unabridged and unbridled freedom has really, really put us into a prison, because we are just totally out of control in ourselves. If you go back to, these ancient Kemetic and Kushite, kingdoms, and probably in every Aboriginal culture, the leaders were someone that could prove their own morality. Because what does morality do? It sets laws and limitations on yourselves and expands your own personal powers. And they were, necessitated it, to go through trials and to show that they had these certain powers. And how does that come about? By establishing morality within yourself and creating these spheres of energetic influence, when you can, influence your environment in what would be called these days like supernatural ways. And so, that piece is ultimately missing. And so you just look at, the basic physical health, and how, a lot of the so-called leaders conduct themselves on a day-to-day basis in our prevailing world society. And it is just, it's very shocking. It's odd, and the decisions that are made. And I personally, and for the group, I don't want to maybe get too much into this, but I think I got to touch on it. When experience as a as a United States Marine myself, and going into that, and when I had joined, I had already had a college degree. I could have been an officer immediately, but decided to get the experience as an enlisted man because I wanted to know, what the people went through that I was going to lead. And through a variety of experiences that, I can only share. But I'd like to share just one today. I just wanted to get out of that whole game as quickly as possible. But when we were in Iraq, I'm just shocked, just even prevailing this, relaying this story. We're in the middle of Iraq during the war when we're advancing toward the, advancing in the lines, and we're at a base camp, and a colonel comes in and speaking to my captain, and there was an abandoned warehouse that we had passed on the way coming up, and the colonel came in and was talking to my captain and said, "I want you to take 2 fire teams and go to the abandoned warehouse and try to find a piece to fix my air conditioner." To fix my air conditioner.
Wow.
And my captain, who was a great leader in his sphere, just looked at the colonel and said, "Sir, that's an unsecured area. That's a very dangerous area." And he just looked at me and said, "I know. That's why I want you to take 2 fire teams." And I was part of that team, and we went there and we took fire and to get a piece for his air conditioner. And these were the decisions, and these are leaders that, not only were prevalent in that organization that I saw time and time and time and time. That's just one small example. But this is prevalent in our society. These are decisions that are being made from persons that have completely unmoral being in themselves. Right. And so they don't have those abilities. Not only are they putting everybody else in danger, but they don't have those abilities that Makakuvu and Ramutep are speaking of in order to hear these unspoken entities, talk to them, for example. Right. If we look at the energies that are coming up, in the next couple of days too, there's this synthesis and integration and tranquility that we're going to be experiencing just for the next few days. That's half of a week. But if we go deeper into that wisdom, but the deeper part of that is obeying demands and being subordinate. And so it's well, how does that fall? Because it's the freedom to serve. And the question is, what or who are you serving? And so, this all really goes into it. We really, need to establish that leadership in the self. And if a person in a so-called leadership role is obviously not able to even accomplish that much, that person needs to be ousted. And so I'll just leave it there. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you.
You've been taking it all in, man. So give us your analysis so far.
I'm taking it all in.
Say what, Pam?
I said I'm taking it. I'm taking it all in because I think that in those spaces you have to move into a save yourself mentality. Be a part because you've been put in a space, but at the same time you have to go into protector of yourself and come out on the end. I myself have learned not to be a quitter. I've been put in situations for so many years, and I get there and I'm like, okay, why am I here? Why am I taking a part? But I say, you know what? When I get through this, then I know to move out of that space. So,
Just lost your audio.
hold on, it's because somebody's trying to. Yeah. So, with me, I've just learned that it's self-preservation. You got to save yourself.
Yeah, what Kek just said reminded me of two things actually. One is like quite a similar story from Afghanistan when the US troops were still there. The one I just heard it from like a TV debate or something where a retired Indian major was talking, and like he was saying that like when you like a soldier are eating an ice cream and your main like concern is like what is the room temperature, like similar, quite very similar thing, then how can you like say that you're savior of that kid in the house next to you who is starving right there without a father? Like like yeah, it was back when the US pulled out its troops, yeah, and like what happened in Iraq with Kek, like same thing US did in the Afghanistan, yeah. Yeah, I just got reminded of that story. And the second is like, yeah, his argument of putting limits onto yourself when you are in a leadership role. Like this is like one aspect that we did not talk about, but it is very important because like this reminds me of and there is an epic called Ramayana in our Indian culture, and not only Indian, like all over Southeast Asia as well. There is this epic, this story, and like that main character, Ram, he is a prince who is exiled due to some reasons, and like, why do people respect him and still worship him until today, even nowadays? Is that because he, no matter what life threw at him, he always followed his duty, morality, righteousness, and did whatever the position required him to do, and like when his like he was in exile, his wife got kidnapped, and he did not use like his kingdom or his connections or anything. He just from scratch, from zero, built up an army, built up allies, went to the most powerful king of that time who kidnapped his wife, like beat him and took his wife back, like not using his own kingdom or his own anything. So because why? Because he was in exile, like and like the reason why he did not let himself do like many like things which were logical, yeah, like for example when he was exiled, it was like very stupid reason. Even like people of the kingdom, like the civilians, they thought that this thing is BS. He should be the ruler, but he said that like his argument was that if I, as a king, cannot follow on will follow through with my word. Like his father made some old promise, and because of that promise, the main character he had to be exiled. So he said that if my father or we cannot hold our words, like we are the kings, then how can ordinary people then trust each other? Like if we cannot perform that simple thing. And his conduct, this code of conduct is why people still respect that person, why people still worship him. I can actually share, like there's on YouTube, it's in English, this mini series of 10-minute clips of of retelling of each chapter of Ramayana, like following this journey of how he got exiled, what was his kingdom like, and like the argument that he had, and like this entire story it is on YouTube. Like it's still uncompleted, like the project is still ongoing, but it is like put in a very nice presentation of 10-minute videos. I will share like in the chat after we are done. Yeah, like this is what Keck was talking about, like putting limitation onto oneself, and that makes you a leader. Yeah.
So in saying that, do we feel like a person should know when they're not a leader, and should they step down, or do they just continue to lead in a bad way?
Well, both Sid's story and that prompt just kind of, draw me to share. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with, I believe his name is Ayekwaye Armah. Fantastic African novelist. It's unbelievable. And one of his books is called 2000 Seasons. And it's about the story of the capturing of West Africans, and the journey, across the ocean. And there's just this incredibly moving scene. And I used this as a teaching tool when I was teaching English overseas for a while, like these 3 pages. And I could summarize it best, but from what I remember, there's the female that's part of this tribe, and like everybody else is being duped into like literally like going onto this ship on their own accord, and the one female is like just watching it all and like seeing exactly what's going, after she pleaded to everybody like, this is a horrifying idea, like you have no idea what you're getting into. And while the ship was loading, she came along, and then she was questioned by one of her peoples later that like understood her own position, that after it was revealed like what was about to occur. And they said, well, why didn't you save yourself? And she looked at them confused. She said, save myself? She said, there is no self without us. There is no self without us. And like, I will never, that has just stayed with me it will stay with me for the rest of my life. That whole idea of, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we are me. And it's that ideal that has, that's someone that has the proper, you need the proper perspective. Even before you have the skills and abilities, you need to have the proper perspective in order to be able to lead, I guess is what I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It goes back to like what I sometimes teach people when it comes to certain things of this nature. And I'll use the leadership part, the 3 signs of the leadership part. So in that whole 12 signs sector, right, each sign has an opposite, right? Anytime the sun moves into these leadership signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, what is their opposite? Their opposites are Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Libra. I had to think about it for a second. So what I'm saying is you have these 3 aspects of leadership: spiritual leadership, governance, and then just dictatorship in a sense, but not in a bad way. Their opposites is dealing with partnerships, communication, and community. So what is being highlighted under the season, what I call segment, but just to keep it on a basic level, we're in the season of Leo. What is being in the season of Leo, the whole thing that's highlighted is not only how we express what's our passion, how to guide ourselves, but it's also connecting to the structure of the community. For Aquarius is about a community. Aquarius is about the nation building. Understanding those 2 roles, that one part is being shadowed, one's being highlighted. So in other terms, they will say the 5th house and the 11th house, in a sense. In retrospective, how I see it is just more so, how do I use this energy to transmute it into a certain foundation? That is just the whole period of these next, since the 10th, so it's like 37 days, 35, 37 days. For the next 35 to 37 days, what are the things that I need to look at that's going to need to be not necessarily destroyed in my life, but needs to be destroyed, needs to be basically just taken out, so I can use whatever the debris is to build into what is needed for my community.
So I'm gonna
So
take
what
this
are the other signs doing in this time period?
They're playing roles. They're playing roles. For me, I'm just using the sun. The sun is just the main one. There's more to it, but I'm just keeping it on a very basic level. I'm just dealing with the sun and the sun only. The sun is what's highlighting Leo, and its shadow is Aquarius. So it's just more so, what do I need to break down, or what do I need to create within this, so I can shift it into the shadows where it can start to basically regenerate.
Okay.
So I want to take this conversation up a notch, because we're looking at mindset development, mind control, propaganda narrative. But in order for the propaganda narrative to work, there has to be repetition. In order for there to be repetition, there needs to be an element that's fed to the masses that maintains the repetition. And that repetition is media. Newspaper, radio, television. Newspaper, radio, television. In antiquity, because you had none of that, the repetition was the culture. And those elements in the culture that provided the morality of the people to maintain integrity and humility and humanity in their living structure, their community, their village, their nation as a people. Now you have the modern elements of radio, television, telephones, apps. So what does that do? It provides a broader foundation for the propaganda narrative. And if the people already believe in falsehood, not knowing that the falsehood they believe in as truth is a lie, now you have a greater factor for manipulation of the masses. So leadership is not something that exists in the vacuum. It exists in the structure of the foundation of the gathering of yourself, a group, or the masses. But it goes beyond the masses. It goes beyond the masses. But I'm not going to get into that element today. We're going to deal with just the propaganda narrative, because the propaganda narrative is what caused the World Media Coalition to come into existence. To come into existence. 2016, you had the modern narrative in the elections leading up to the election of the former individual in the White House. The propaganda narrative about him going to the White House began over 30 years ago. Why? Because the media always would go to this individual for his opinion. For his opinion. A microphone in his face. Oh, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about the Central Park Five? Well, they should be in jail for life. The narrative that they use to boost this individual, to make him seem like he was all intelligent, an omnipotent, intelligent force. And then, when he decided he's going to run for the presidency, the propaganda narrative intensifies. Say, oh, he's a counterpuncher. You strike him, he'll strike you back. No, he's a political insurrectionist. So the World Media Coalition, our objective was to host a media conference to analyze the propaganda narrative going into the 2016 elections. That propaganda narrative that was based upon developing an alternative to Barack Obama. To Barack Obama. So, when you look at that structure, and the root of that structure is what is the Make America Great Again slogan. Make America Great is based upon the fact that their attitude is that there are too many people of color making decisions in government that affect their life. There was a news story yesterday coming off of MSNBC, and the person was talking about how this last week, when they raided Mar-a-Lago, and all of a sudden the Republicans start talking about defund the FBI, kill the FBI, kill the judge, kill Merrick Garland. And the newscaster was talking about what the propaganda narrative when black folks get shot by police and they're unarmed. They tell black folks, well, just comply if the police say, put your hands behind your back, put your hands behind your back. They say, get on the ground, get on the ground. But when the law enforcement asked Mar-a-Lago or asked Roger Stone or asked Steve Bannon or asked Giuliani, they were like, no. Lindsey Graham, no, we're not going for that. Subpoena us to come to court? No, we don't have to go there. So the news story was comparing, a comparison contrast between the propaganda narrative that has caused people to storm on January 6th in an insurrection, whereas for people of color, you're supposed to comply. But for them, they don't have to comply because the law does not apply to them. The law does not apply to them. They're above the law. They don't have to comply. So what do? They go to court and challenge the subpoena.
Mm-hmm.
And when they challenge the subpoena, it sends off the vibration to all of their millions of supporters to lock and load. Let's go to war. Not we're a nation of laws and we should follow the law. So when you talk about leadership, it's not something that you should take for granted. There are no natural born leaders. There are no natural born leaders. Why? Because leaders and leadership require certain characteristics that need to be embodied and developed in order for them to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
In order for them to be effective. Now, there can be an emotional part. An emotional part is like the guy on the team. He starts to chant. He gets everybody pumped up. That's the emotional component to get the energy flowing. That doesn't mean that the characteristics that embody the individual are leadership characteristics. So I want to take it to that level so people begin to see, because there's something else that has just occurred. There's something else that has just occurred in everybody. Your vision of what you were looking at just changed. Your vision from what you were looking at the conversation just changed and lifted itself to see a different panoramic view. Anybody want to jump in?
Well, there's a couple of things that immediately come to mind, just as good examples of what you were just saying. Just that whole emotional leader. The first thing I thought of was just back when the Bulls were winning all their championships, and just like and just kicking my Knicks to the ground every year, and I was just in tears. But like you had who was in the middle before the game, getting everybody hyped up? Cliff Levingston. Was he ever on the court? Never. That brother never played a minute, but he was always there as the emotional leader. And so, that's immediately what I think of. And not to put not to make any kind of joke about the situation that you're talking about with the racist police actions and the propaganda that causes different things to occur. But like on a social commentary level, especially when you listen to some of his stuff that he's put out recently, Dave Chappelle is like always kind of, been there on that tip. And, you go back to when he had his show, and I just immediately started thinking of, when he had his white friend in the car, and it's just like, oh, don't worry about it. And the officer came up and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know I couldn't do that, and then he just got away with everything. Right. And so like, that's just been the narrative like forever. These are just the things that I think of, and people don't realize the magic of Hekau. People don't realize the magic of words, the vibration, the Udamaaki. I was just saying that in the shower yesterday. I was just like, I felt so liberated, like Udamaaki. And like when to tie some of my conversations together. As soon as I got out of the Marine Corps, I said, and I joined that organization because I believed all the propaganda. I believed it all. Everything that they said, like I was that guy where, that commercial with like slaying the dragon. I was like, yeah, and like I got in and I'm just like, these are the most corrupt, unmoral, undisciplined people that I've ever been around. The few, the proud. This is the bottom of the barrel, right? What I would call, but there, just to give credence to all of that, there was the best and the worst, is what I saw in my experience. There was nothing but the best and the worst, nothing in between. Anyway, but the power of words, and what I told, I made it my mission. I said, I will never be duped by the power of words again. And so I got my master's degree in rhetoric, literally how words create reality. And so, like, I was accepted to 5, 6 law schools. I didn't want to practice the art. I wanted to learn the science behind it and how this occurs. So I wasn't going to be a victim of that manipulation ever again. And then, just throughout the years and learning and doing what we're doing now with the Oracle and things like that, these things have just honed themselves and continue to expand. But this word power is very, very real. And I just want to give, ultimate credence to everything you're saying, Makakuba.
Well, thank you for that. But I'm sharing this because leadership is always taken for granted. It's never fully analyzed. And the reason why it's never fully analyzed is because there's always different ideas, concepts, and theories of leadership, but they never delineate the levels that you will lead on. And then they don't delineate the characteristics to lead on each level. And they don't delineate the ability to develop the characteristics. It's all taken for granted. And then when you put in corrupt individuals into leadership mechanisms, and you put corrupt individuals into entities that can control the propaganda narrative, then you bring about situations where the entire structure of civilization is in conflict. Hence, World War I, World War II, the current wars, the constant state of warfare and humanity. The constant state of warfare and humanity. And that constant state of warfare and humanity is fed by religionism. Religionism. That constant state of warfare. Even God is taught to you as an individual, as an entity that's at war with creation, because God will destroy man because man is at war with God.
It goes back to
go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
That goes back to a conversation I had with Keck that he shared with me just a couple of days ago. And everything that we was talking about a couple of days ago, like, really made me think of the word or the title that is given, that we call ourselves gods and goddesses. And from the story, that my own personal experience within that same concept of, the word being of God, in a sense, it really changed a lot of how my direction is going when it comes to dealing with the masses. Because a lot of what we're predicating on has been dealing with this particular being. Not understanding that this being, in a sense, or where to put it, or this one entity that had us basically kill this being, and not understanding that being that it killed was us, and it kept us trapped in this particular mind frame. But go right ahead, Elder.
So when you look at that propaganda narrative that moves the masses in whatever direction it determines they need to go in, every time they go to a point where they're launching attacks on one another, what do? Everybody goes and prays to God. Everybody goes and prays to God to win the war. So if God is if there's one God and everybody's going to God to win the war, then damn, God must be confused too. Because it's confusing to believe that your God is right and wants you to go kill everybody else, and their God is right who wants them to go kill everybody else. So what is happening? Now, here you go. Here you go. Think about this now. Because death is not a reality, number one. That's not a reality. So now, if people are taking the right to remove your spirit and your soul from your body by discontinuing the breath of life that fuels you to experience creation, where does that energy go? And what entity is collecting that energy? Because death is not a finality. So if it's not a finality, and your breath is not your breath, it was loaned to you. It was loaned to you. And the element of breath that fuels your ability to use it is the air. Is the air. So if the air gives you a lease on your breath, that means you don't control it. And that energy, when it's released from your body, your physical form, where does it go and who is collecting it? Go ahead, brother.
I'm not aware. Have anybody seen this movie? I think, was it Russell Crowe? No, it's not Russell. Yeah, I think Russell Crowe was in it, and it was playing. He was playing Noah. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie. It was like what, maybe 10 years ago. He was reprising the role of Noah, and when you were saying that, it made me think about it. How they were showing that what you're speaking of. So in the movie, Noah was told to go build the ark, so on and so forth. They also put it like, a whole narrative that people who were basically being left behind basically was going to war with them. And then the fallen angels, right, known as the Nephilim, they were golem-like people. And their duty was to help Noah build this ark. And when these people, this kingdom, tried to take them out, the golems basically fought them off to the point where they basically died. But when they died, they were released from their bond and they went basically back to a source. And they just kept, and every time they went back to a source, it was like a bomb. It was like, oh, they took out this wave because it's like they self-sacrificed themselves to go to wherever they was because they were trapped because of whatever happened during that whole lineage story. And they were there during that whole time frame, and they had to become basically these beings or these giants, as they called them. And they were just built of the earth. They were all built of the earth. And when you were saying that, that whole scene just kept popping in my head when you kept saying that. And I was like, oh, that makes sense why they showed that in that movie. That makes a lot of sense. They didn't show you where you were going. They just showed you where those beings ascended to.
Right.
But they didn't show you where. They just showed you them exploding, their bodies exploding because they were rocks. So they was taking out the troops. But at the same time, the type of spirit that came out of it was not like what they would call or described as an angel, mind you, at that. But these beings were basically the fallen angels that basically got trapped here. And when they basically did their duty, in a sense, or basically all it was them shedding their skin, because that's all they had to do, to be honest, was them just to shed their skin, and they will sin. And as you're saying that, I'm just like, oh, he's right. They did show that in that movie. They sure did show that, and it was just that particular scene is from everything that you just saying just now, just literally just.
Well, I'm reminded of Gil Scott Heron track where it's talking about, you know, it's about running. You know, when the time comes, we will all be running. But then he says, but I will not be running away. I will be running in the other direction because I need to be fighting for something that is more important than my life. I need to be fighting for something that is more important than my life. And I think, Makakubu, that is everything that you're talking about. And I just so happened to recently look up the etymology of the word war, and all it means is confusion. And it's this perpetual war on everything and everybody and everyone that causes the confusion that allows the propaganda machine to work in the first place. If people aren't confused in their own being, then, you know, they're immune to this. Right. But we're in this perpetual state of mass confusion because it's, you know, information overload, and it's all disinformation. It's all dysfunctional. It's all incomplete, and it's not realized.
So with that, Van, you want to take us out?
Yes, I can.
Because this was just part 2 of the 7 levels of leadership, folks. Fallacy of leadership. This is part 2. We got 5 more parts to go.
Wow. Amazing. It's truly amazing. It teaches us and just says to us that for the most part, most of us are just pawns. People that have, sorry, somebody keeps trying to call me. People that have come into a space in life and time, and we've been taught what we should say, what we should do, what we should look like, how we should act, when we should speak, and when we should be quiet. We are in an end time situation, and a lot of us will be devoured. We will be ate up and taken away from where it is that we are. Not of our own being, but because of other people that are around us, other people that we allow to become part of our spirits and of our souls. We will be taken out. Some of us taken out too soon. Learning and understanding that we are a group of people that see and understand what is going on. And our gut feelings tell us a lot of times about what is really happening. But do we listen to our guts? Do we listen to what our minds and our hearts are saying to us? We enter into situations, and I know that I personally have entered into places, and I know from the onset of it that it's not a place that I should be, not a place that I should be speaking in or participating in. Do we learn how to step away from these situations, or do we continue to allow ourselves to be caught up in the hype, in the names, and in the titles of what is going on around us? So I would say to you, our listeners, it's truly time for us to take a look at ourselves, who we really are, and where it is that we're really going. As has been spoken here today, we can manifest things, but are we really, really, really going to do anything with what we have manifested? Can we really see ourselves winning in the spaces of the things that we have manifested, because words truly do have power. So until next Thursday at 12 noon, we say it gives you an opportunity to think about what it has been said here today and what we'll be talking about in the future. So we ask that you join us. And until then, have a great day, a great afternoon, and we'll see you soon.
I think Ramutef wanted to say a quick word. Am I correct, Ramutef?
No, I saw Keck say, look like he wanted to say something.
Okay.
I just want to honor a great man whose birthday was yesterday, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and also give a shout out to Siba Ramutef, who happens to share the same solar return, and so blessings be on both of these.
Yes, happy born day.
Well, now that you said that, again, Ramutef, Udamakiyo, and congratulations. But yesterday, I was on a talk show with the Interconnected Justice, with the group come out of the brother that started it, Bishop Joseph Tolton, out of New York. And they had a tremendous production with over 60 people on Zoom, and at least another 200 from different parts of Uganda and Haiti and Kenya and Ghana watching the production. And it was the Marcus Garvey birthday celebration sponsored by Interconnected Justice. So, and I was thinking about that all during the conversation, and I'm glad Keck mentioned it, so we can go out on that note.
Yes.
To both Ramutef and those who celebrate and believe in the works of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Congratulations. Udama Akuyua, doing the chair. Sid, did you say something?
Yeah. Actually, yesterday was also New Year in a Zoroastrian tradition. Yeah, so I do not celebrate it, but I always put it in my online profiles that happy Parsi New Year. There's that, and coincidentally, this year, tomorrow is Krishna Janmashtami, so birthday of Krishna. So, like, today is between two big days that we are having our conversation.
Right on. Well, Sid just opened up a new bag when he said the Zoroastrian tradition. Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, is the Persian prophet, and many of his miracles are attributed to so-called Jesus. But Zarathustra is a greater spiritual prophet than most of the other known prophets to this very day. A Persian prophet who had the color of his skin a dark copper color. So when he says Zoroaster, he opened up another bag of worms. We can talk about Zarathustra later on, because Zarathustra was a deep spiritual entity that people don't even want to talk about, because if they talked about him, they wouldn't believe all the lies they believe now. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, wow. So until next week, we say, and let us please remember Joe Williams, one of our counterparts who's here on the show, going home to funeralize his mother as well. And we just say have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Stop that. My aunt, the Storm Truth, Van Miller, I Found My Voice, World Media Coalition, Jazz Lovers Television Network, with Ramutef Ken, Kek Ankh Hay, Ufa City Sid, and last but not least, and the most powerful voice in the room, who was silent most of the time, Zulu King Flixon.
Yes. We just thank you all for all that you do and for all that you all share here on this program, because without you, there wouldn't be a program. And Marco Kuvu, most of all, we thank you for seeing that we had a voice and allowing us to be in this space this Thursday. We thank you.
Doing the chair. Thank the Most High.